feels like we've been waiting an age for the Batman Part 2. Matt Reeves' long-anticipated sequel to 2022's The Batman, but that wait looks like it's getting shorter. Finally. Recent reports have earmarked the film for a 2027 release, with Warner Brothers extremely enthusiastic about the script, which will see Robert Pattinson reprise the role of the Caped Crusader in a continuation of the epic crime saga Reeves has already supplemented with The Penguin on HBO Max. But there is a fresh twist in the tale of its development, and one that's probably gonna leave some fans a little bit anxious, but one that I actually think makes perfect sense if it turns out to be true. Hello everyone, what's up? I'm Ewan, this is What Culture, and yeah, let's get into it. So obviously there have been loads of rumors surrounding the Batman Part 2, dating even all the way back to the release of the first movie, because the nature of Reeves' project has shifted and evolved with the ongoing evolution of Warner Brothers and DC. Obviously this thing got commissioned before the whole James Gunn, Peter Safran DCU thing came along, and yeah, we've seen different changes that have come with that. In particular, some debate around the tonality of this franchise and whether or not it's going to retain the sort of grounded, pseudo-realistic feel of that first movie and maybe aim for something a little bit more supernatural or sci-fi. I know a lot of people have wanted Clayface to appear or Mr. Freeze, for example. But now we have a big doozy of a rumor that may actually indicate that shifting tonality in a really, really big way. It comes from hit or miss Hollywood insider Jeffrey Snyder, but lines up with some previous rumors about this character, and yeah, so apparently not only are WB super enthusiastic about what Reeves has been slow cooking over the last few years, the boy wonder himself, Robin, is apparently going to feature too. Now, we should obviously take this with a huge grain of salt because, again, we don't know anything about the Batman Part 2 story other than that Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson are returning, and I believe Andy Serkis and probably Barry Keoghan as well. But yeah, it would line up with previous rumors too. The whole Robin and the Batman Part 2 concept has been doing the rounds online for a while now, and obviously, The Brave and the Bold, that is the Andy Muschietti Batman movie being helmed for the DCU, which obviously just got started with Superman, and we're gonna have Supergirl next year too. That is going to take huge cues from Grant Morrison's run on The Dark Knight. In particular, the stuff involving Damian Wayne, who I love. I'm really excited about that movie, even though Andy Muschietti did The Flash, which was not good, but it's nice overall, as someone who is a fan of these comics, to see that Robin is no longer persona non grata, and if Hollywood and studios in general are warming to the concept of the character, wouldn't be that big of a stretch to see him appear in the Batman Part 2, even though obviously it is completely different in terms of tonality, and even though it is still the superhero genre, it's clearly taking more, cues and motifs from Batman's early pulp noir heyday. Film and TV is cool, but you know what else is cool? Protecting your privacy online. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card if you sign up today. I'd make that deal. Damn good deal. I know instantly people are going to be going, Robin, that makes no sense for the Batman given how dark it was. We had Riddler taking cues from the Zodiac, for instance. But it actually makes perfect sense the more you think about it. Now, Reeves has coined this franchise the epic Batman crime saga thing. I believe that's the technical title. And with that in mind, you're probably expecting the next installments to hew very close in tone and spirit to that first movie. And now what I'm not suggesting here is that the upcoming Batman sequels are going to shoot for different eras and incarnations of the character's source material. I do think there is one key evolution from that previous movie that shows that Robin would make a hell of a lot of sense to introduce in the follow-up. So The Batman Part 1 obviously was not an origin story in the same way that Nolan's Batman Begins was, but it did tell the story of Batman in a key transition period in his life. You know, there are multiple different eras from the character, and one comic that Reeves took a lot of cues from, apart from The Long Halloween in Year One, was Darwyn Cooke's Batman Ego. The movie is very much a psychological look at the duality of the character, and kind of goes against the grain and tropiness of Bruce Wayne being the mask and Batman being who this person is deep down. It starts off that way, but that's only to subvert that expectation. We go and see this character, this tortured young Bruce Wayne, who has really foregone any kind of existence as an actual human being to take on this symbol of fear and pain. And by the end of it, he realizes that Batman can be different things. He can be a symbol of hope, and that mirrors some closing panels in Batman Ego perfectly, and you should go read that comic if you haven't already because it is like the best. And yeah, what I'm getting at here is that Batman is undergoing an evolution in these movies, and if Gotham itself is also undergoing a sort of evolution, you know, we've seen the introduction of the Joker already, the Riddler. If we're going from that kind of like early in his career Batman taking on mobsters, gangsters, it would make sense for the sequel to escalate that and bring in more unusual supervillains. You know, the first movie already explicitly had the Riddler say that he's only around because Batman was. For the sequel, it would make sense if Batman was inspiring some good, and the ultimate example of that is Robin, whether it's Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, Jason Todd, or even Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns, who would be amazing to see in this movie too. So if we take the approach of each movie in Reeves' Batman saga, tapping into a different era of the character's life, and nothing as dramatic as, say, a huge like decade time skip or anything like that, then Robin would make sense as a tonal complement. I'm not saying that I expect the next Batman movies to divest from the pulp noir motifs that made the first one so good, but rather that Robin would lend themselves well to those motifs because he's been there since the beginning. And also, if Reeves already has his brain in that Darwyn Cooke headspace, and trust me, it's a great place to be, then there's an actual scene in DC The New Frontier, which was adapted into Justice League The New Frontier as an animated movie, if you want to go watch that and not read the comic, although you should definitely read the comic and then watch the animated movie. I digress. There's a really good moment where we have this bit where Batman is transitioning from the Golden Age incarnation, which is dark, pulpy, very The Shadow inspired, and moving into the brighter period of the Silver Age. And that kind of focal point occurs when, in the Golden Age era, he ends up scaring a child who he's trying to rescue, and he's having this brilliant scene where he meets up with Superman, and Superman goes, "Oh, why have you got a sidekick? That doesn't seem very you, Bruce." And he basically just goes, "I set out to scare criminals, not children." And this kid right here, he's a kindred spirit. It's a beautiful moment in that comic. And while I don't think, again, that the Batman Part 2 is going to go as dramatically into like a Silver Age left turn, because clearly James Gunn's franchise is fulfilling those needs and wants pretty well on its own already, I do think that's a key bit that Reeves could be thinking about as the Batman 2 is gathering pace. And again, it's not like Robin doesn't lend himself well to darkness either. You know, again, even though the character was introduced as a surrogate for younger readers back in the 1940s, over the years we've seen his origin reinterpreted in all sorts of different and cool ways. The Long Halloween was a clear touchstone for the Batman Part 1, and Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale did Batman Dark Victory, which was a follow-up to Long Halloween, and also had this great retelling of Dick Grayson's, origin story as Robin. It would make perfect sense to try and take those cues and bring them together, and I would not be surprised if that's one of the comics that Reeves has been thinking about if these Robin rumors are correct. And one thing I do really want to see as well with the Batman Part 2 is more supernatural and Gothic influences. I still think that Reeves is very clearly drawn to the pulp noir of it all, but there was a series that he co-produced alongside J.J. Abrams and Bruce Timm last year called Batman: The Caped Crusader, which was a spiritual successor to Batman animated series that was explicitly set in the 1940s. And there was this brilliant episode involving the supernatural. And that's the kind of thing that I think could really lend itself well to having Robin in as well. But regardless, even if Reeves doesn't tap into that sort of folkloric magic well that Mike Mignola also deployed to great effect when he was doing different Batman comics in the 1990s, I think the Gothic horroriness of, you know, Dick Grayson's origin in particular makes perfect sense. Obviously, there's the crime element because you have Tony Zuko, but, you know, he comes from Haley's Circus, which is a community and a positive symbol in the comics, but also there's some Gothic horroriness to the idea of a traveling circus. You could get some Nightmare Alley-esque inflections going on there. And obviously you look at Jason Todd and Tim Drake and Carrie Kelly, they all come from dark backgrounds in their own respective ways. So yeah, I feel like Robin does make sense within whatever context Reeves is drawing for his sequel. And look, I get it. I know there are probably loads of people right now being like, do not put Robin in my Batman movie. Get him out of there. I don't want him. But to that I would say, genuinely, the character has not been done right in live action before. I love Burt Ward's Robin, but that speaks to a particular incarnation of the character and Batman's mythos. So again, probably harsh to say it hasn't been done right before because the 60s Batman show is brilliant and definitely speaks to a version of the Caped Crusader that everyone should let into their hearts, is what I would say with that. But in regards to stuff like, you know, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, you basically have the situation where Batman is adopting like a 25-year-old adult man to be Robin, which made no sense whatsoever. I kind of like the suit in Forever, and I think there are some interesting dynamics going on with that character. But, you know, it's still not the Robin readers are familiar with, or even people, you know, who have been watching Batman animated series or the new Batman Adventures. It's very clearly not what that character actually is. And while there has been historic opposition to having Robin appear in Batman's movies, dating all the way back to, you know, Tim Burton's take on the character where there were some plans to have him get introduced. And by the way, if you want to see the what if of that, there's a really good Batman '89 comic co-written by Sam Hamm, who obviously was a co-writer on the original Batman movies, and drawn by Joe Quinones, and it does the whole really cool Robin stuff with there, and also Billy D. Williams as Two-Face. So go check that out if you haven't already. And I'm getting distracted again. I was gonna say, even though there has been historic opposition to the character in his movies, I mean, there was the whole no Robin thing for Christopher Nolan's take. He's generally seen as being the antithesis of something serious or something that people can get invested in. It's superheroes at the end of the day. No matter how serious you make them, no matter how much you draw from real life influences and inspirations, it's still fundamentally outlandish. And while I'm not saying that Robin is fundamentally outlandish, I think you can do him in a way that complements what we've already seen in live action before. I would just say, you know, it's not that serious. It's not that big a deal. I think if we all just made a little bit more room for Robin in our lives, then we'd all be a lot happier. So yeah, even though on the surface, Robin appearing in the Batman Part 2 seems stupid, and again, just want to reiterate, we don't know if this is for sure happening or not, I think it makes perfect sense, and the bulk of the character's comic book history kind of lends itself to that argument. So yeah, let me know what you think of this down in the comments below. Are you pro-Robin, anti-Robin? Do you think that this is actually going to happen, or is it a whole bunch of holy rusted metal Batman? That was a Batman Forever reference. I've been Ewan, this has been What Culture, and I'll see you next time. Bye.